Hello and welcome to our webinar. I'm Andrew ZebraBA and today it's already our 20th webinar of the ZebraBI webinar series, and this time I'll be supercharging your Power BI dashboards with small multiples, one of the most powerful data visualization methods out there, which many people do not know that is also possible to do in Power BI with customers. So let me just dive in and just give you an idea what small multiples are and why they are so extremely important and powerful. So this is actually our website analytics. So it's more or less our real data, a little bit anonymized. But if you just analyze it as this picture mm, as a dashboard, it has two charts, right? So it's very simple, two charts. This chart shows me the growth from previous year, and we have quite healthy growth of the website traffic. Actually, is gold completions on our website. So good results. But the question is, all right, how do we achieve that? What this is for the whole website. The website is complex. It has a lot of pages, and the traffic comes from multiple sources and so on. So how do you analyze that? How do you add the power of knowledge to this ultra simplified dashboard with just two charts? Let me click on this chart, and I'll just add a dimension of the source and medium. So where does all my traffic come from? All right. So now this is a completely different story. Now I understand, all right, we have some good growth here. And now here I have all the details. I have all the answers, right? Here I just have a simple fact, good growth. All right, that's it. But it's boring. There's no knowledge there. Knowledge is in the details, right? So if I do this, now I have all the answers here. I see that our organic traffic from Google searches are going up quite rapidly, and this is the majority of our web traffic, and so on. Not so successful in some other channels, and so on. I see the importance of all the channels. So all the knowledge, all the insight is in the details. And this here, my friends, this is a small multiple, right? It's just one visual. It's just one simple visual in one place, and but it can render many charts. Actually, this dimension of source medium, I think it has some 2000 and something elements, channels, different types of channels, and yeah, it's all analyzed here and presented in one single visual. All right, just this is a very extreme example of what I'm going to talk about today. So let's take it step by step and dive into our topic. First, explain a little bit about the small multiples, what they are, and a little bit of theory, and then we'll just switch to Power BI and show you how to build, how to design, what the caveats are, what the issues are, and how you can solve them, with some tricks and with the smart use of different chart layouts and things like that. All right. A few words about me. I'm Andre Lapine. I'm the founder of ZebraBI. My main field of research and of my whole endeavor is the data visualization. So I'm studying this and working as a consultant, as a software developer for over 20 years. So dealing especially with data visualization, business intelligence, a lot of financial reporting as well. I do this mostly in Excel and Power BI. And yeah, I build a lot of dashboards, and our clients who are using our visuals, of course, are also building tons of dashboards, so we get a lot of feedback and so on. So we're happy to share this, what we learned with you guys. All right, so let's define small multiples. Well, before we define it, just the agenda for today. So small multiples 101. So the definitions and so on. Some more practical examples. You can use small multiples in finance, in marketing, in production, in everywhere, in HR reporting, in marketing reporting, social media analysis, and so on. So there's no limitations. After we see some practical examples, we'll just switch to Power BI and see how you can create, how you can design them, how you can control the scaling, the labels, and everything to make small multiples really work for you, so people will understand them and actually gain additional information. After we are finished in Power BI, I'll share all the resources and download links, and hopefully there will be also a Q&A at the end. And yes, we are doing the recording. So the whole webinar is being recorded, so we will send you the recording after two days, and as well as my X examples that I've prepared for today. All right. For a wide range of problems in data presentations, small multiples are the best designed solution. This is a citation from Edward Tufte's Envisioning Information. So he was one of the biggest gurus of data visualization, and he was actually he coined the term small multiples, and tried to convince people that small multiples are really powerful. Unfortunately, they have not been implemented, I would say, in practice a lot, and the reason is, according to my experience, more or less technology. It's simply hard to do small multiples. Not many software and reporting tools support small multiples, and it takes a lot of time to do it, right? So all right, the small multiples, they are also called the trellis chart, lattice charts, grid charts, panel charts, matrix charts, and so on, right? So what small multiples are, simply you, instead of using just one chart, you take one chart and then you repeat this chart several times. All right, so in my case here I have 8 countries, 8 charts. You can have, I don't know, 10 business units, you have, or 10 business units, 10 charts, or you can have 100 or 100,000 customers, and then you would maybe present top 10 or something, and then the traffic of others, also in a small multiple, just to understand the relations between different data categories. Not just understand, but visually compare. This is why the second critical component of a small multiple is that all the charts within the small multiple are scaled. They are rendered according to the same scale. So, or in other words, the y-axis has the same maximum across all the charts. This is critical. If you don't have the scaling right, if you don't get your scaling right, then that is not a small multiple. Then you just have several charts on your dashboard, right? But they are independent, not related to each other, and so on. The key critical component here is the scaling. So here I do understand that USA are by far our biggest market, and that we plan 25% growth here, right? Whereas, for example, Canada is smaller, even though we plan a relatively bigger growth here in Canada, right? It's still not so important than our biggest market here. So you see the scaling, the rendering in the same scale just allows you this insight to visually understand in a very simple way how important is a certain category, what the movements actually within a single category actually mean, and so on. All right, so that's it. Repeating the charts across the same scale sounds quite simple, but in reality, it can get really messy and very, very difficult, especially for the software vendors, to handle the scaling situations, different scaling situations. That's actually, I think, one of the hardest problems in data visualization. Couple of examples of small multiples. So yeah, on-time delivery in percent. So if you have a KPI in percent, like on-time delivery, which would be in any kind of, I don't know, manufacturing or even service delivery, service industries and so on. For example, this company has a goal that their on-time delivery of their products to the let's say manufacturing plants or sales outlets or something like that. Let's say that the goal is 80%, so we have the goal here 80%, and then this is the actual on-time delivery in percent, and we see that yeah, for the cell phones and accessories we were above the goal more or less first half of the year, and then we went down and so on. But now at the end here we are above our goal, and this is now for one group of product categories, and then you have another one, and so on, right? So now you can just simply compare visually all the all the lines, and then you understand, all right, we have a problem here with the audio products, the on-time delivery is going down in the latest month, right? I mean, the trend is stopping here, but still we are below our target, so we'll need to do something here. And similarly here with cameras and camcorders, there was a problem, we sort of fixed it here, it looks like that, and then we're going up and so on. So we understand how each product category contributes to the total picture of our on-time delivery situation, right? We had a bad situation here in tablets, now it's going up and so on. We can compare, and then we can dive. Of course, this is now the first stage. Of course, if this would be a completely interactive report, you would now be able to click on the tablets and then see it on a detailed level and so on, which is where Power BI really shines, because you have so many options to do this in report page tooltips or with other drill through and so on. All right, the same report, a little bit more dramatic. This time we are using just simply a slightly different type of chart. So it's still the line chart, but it's also a combination of a line and area chart. So it's actually an area chart. It's called the hills and valleys chart. So it's the same data, only this time we have emphasized the fact, where is the positive variance, so above the goal, below the goal, so it's easier to spot what's going on. All right, in sales, this is a sales dashboard. Again, we have a small multiple here, so we have put all the product categories. This is the sales this time, like sales in millions of euros or something. So we understand that this product category is much better, is the biggest one, but it does not have really a lot of growth. Actually, this is comparison to plan. It's a little bit, it's 1% below the plan, right? And then we have some product categories here, 3% above the plan, but the real problem is here with the women's clothes. This is a retail operation, so I think it's clothing, women's clothing, and we see that, yeah, this is a problematic category. So we can understand which one is problematic, how important it is compared to other categories and so on. So this visual comparison is very, very powerful. All right, another example, this time, this is the market share in percentage. In percent, for example, we have different car brands like Volkswagen here, and from January last year to January this year, so it's like January on January, so it's actually year-over-year comparison on the month here, and we understand how the market trends are developing for each of the brands, and yeah, we see that like This particular brand here has really good growth from 6% to 12%, like constant growth here and so on. Whereas some other ones are going down. And again, it is a complete picture of, you know, top brands on a market on one page. We can take this idea now and actually provide small multiples, use small multiples to compare different KPIs. So until now, I had one KPI, so like market share or sales or something, so just one KPI, and then I repeated elements of a structural dimension, like, you know, the brands, the customers, the business units, and so on. This is the most simple, I would say, the simplest type of a small multiple, where you have one KPI and then you just repeat it over a group of elements. All right, so this is one. So one KPI. Then the next thing would be, all right, you have one KPI, but then of course in the chart you provide the comparison in the chart. So you have the actual versus previous year here, and then you have the actual versus previous year, right? You have actually, you have the values, right? You have the values, but then you compare the value to previous years, so you can have, you know, you just combine, you start combining the charts. This is one thing, and the other thing is, this time I'm not repeating the chart for the same KPI, because I actually have different KPIs. I have my product revenue, service revenue, so then I have revenue. So these are sort of my accounts here, and they represent different type of KPIs. And this one is harder to build in any type of tool, because my KPIs here can have a different meaning. So for example, if the revenue is growing, then the growth here is 18%, like from previous year, it's green, right? Whereas if I analyze my costs are also growing here, but it's red here. So because the, you know, if the costs are growing from previous year, that's a bad sign, and that's why I have red color here. So which means that now my multiple here actually needs to be aware of the type of the KPI. So I need to tell my chart, my visual here, that these are costs, and, you know, the color should be inverted. All right, so we call these KPI multiples or P&L multiples. Okay, and then you can start combining this in real world examples. Like you can have a P&L, a nice P&L structure here, like product revenue, service revenue, totals to the revenue here with some costs and so on. So this is a typical waterfall calculation here of the income statement down to net income. And now you can illustrate not only what is the growth from previous year, like in a table we are quite limited, right? And you can add this time component here with, again, the small multiple, with the small multiple. So for example, you select certain accounts here, and again you do a P&L multiple here with the product revenue, which is more or less growing. It's more or less flat, almost no growth here, so 2.2%, right? Whereas the service and other revenue, it's much better. It's growing 41%. It's very good. Which this plus this then results in my total revenue here, which has good growth. And you can visually see that this growth here is related to this growth here, right? And in total, this now accounts to 54% growth of my revenue. Then you can have the costs. You can add the gross margin, so you understand. All right, my revenue is growing. Is the gross margin still growing? Right, it's quite important. And if the gross margin is still growing, is my net income still growing? Which is not, right? So there's some problem here in between, right? So as you add more charts, add more elements, and if you scale them, then you can understand your business much better. And this is what professional dashboards and professional reports really should be about. Okay, now one of the first tools out there in BI and in analytics was the Tableau software, which was which is famous for the small multiples. I've used it certainly 15 years ago for projects, and I love this functionality. For example, this is how it looks like in Tableau. This is just one quick example, so really simple one. You have multiples, and you have actually two dimensions here, so the regions and some customer segments, and you get the multiples. So this is the most basic small multiple. So you have a chart, and the chart is repeated all over, right? And now let me see if I can use the pen here. So and now you have always the same height here. This is the same height as this one, and this is the same height, and so on. So all the rows, they are equidistant. This, which is the simplest form of small multiples, right? And then you just draw the charts inside. Now the problem here is that your values in real life, your values will be very different. Once you scale them, you will see that you have some products or some segments where where the values are really high, and you actually make like 80% of all the business, all the revenue, with a few like 20% of your products, right? So it's the Pareto rule. So that's why you will have certain charts very big, and then you will have certain charts really small here, tiny here, right? And now you have all this space here, all the space actually available, all the space available, all the space available, and so on. So if you just repeat the charts and do nothing more than that, then this is really, it's very powerful still, right? Very good, but still, there are some optimizations here in space, right? So so the next step, the next level of small multiples is what actually Zebra BI offers in Power BI, because now instead of having just the equidistant matrices, rows, this multiple here is actually optimized based on, so the layout and the matrix and the grids and so on are optimized based on the actual value. So if I have 103 here and I render this 103 here, it will be exactly, pixel perfect, the same one. So this is 81, so 81 will be here, and so on, right? So it's all pixel perfect scaling, but because the values are so smaller, the whole row here is much smaller, and then again the next row is much smaller, and then we have really small charts here. So they don't use all the space. You make space for the big ones, right? So this is the next stage. This is actually the default stage in Power BI, in Zebra. Then with scaling, so these are now the challenges of scaling, right? Now because some charts are much smaller than others, you can actually do it like this. This is now the next stage where some of the charts are displayed in 2 rows, whereas bigger charts are actually displayed across 2 rows. This is what we call the span function. So if charts are big enough, they simply take more rows in this cell, right? So this is the next stage of optimization of small multiples, and we support that. And then of course, for a real case, you do need this. Now, if I return to my initial example here, I have some big channels here. Then I have small channels, and you see they are in 2 rows. And now, because this element of my source medium dimension actually has 2 1,000 rows, it would make no sense to go beyond, to display all those little ones that, contribute to a few percent of the traffic or something. That's why we have an additional element here, which is called the others, right? Which means that, everything beyond this point here is just summed up in this artificial or automatically calculated data category called the others, right? And you can control this with the small multiples, and all these functions combined together with the control over, how exactly does this grid look like, and so on, and what is the sorting within the small multiples. All this together actually now comprises the conditions for a good small multiple report that you can use in your reports and dashboards. All right. Okay. Hopefully this was inspiring and that it looks interesting enough for you to follow me through the Power BI. Now let's do this in Power BI. Let's do this in Power BI. Let me switch to another example with some sales data that I have here. By the way, while I'm doing this, if you have any kind of questions, please type them into your questions box. So when I finish with the dirty work in Power BI, I will get to your questions and I will try to answer them. So just type your questions while I'm doing this, and I will address them later on. Okay, so let's start with a simple example here. So I have a waterfall chart. Now this waterfall chart, of course, I can have different, so let's switch to a monthly view here. So for example, basically any type of chart that you have, any type, it does not really matter, will become a small multiple when you add a dimension. So let's start with a business unit here. Okay. Let's start with the business unit and let me switch to smart rows, which is normally you would get this. Okay, normally you would get this. And as you see now you have now we have what, 18 charts. Oh, this is already with you know what? Let me just start from the beginning. It'll be, and just to explain everything from the beginning. So we'll take the Zebra BI visual, Zebra BI Power Charts visual, and we'll add the actual sales, compare this to previous year, and split this by quarter. Okay, and I'll just delete this month filter here. Okay, so I have all the quarters now. Now we'll add another dimension, and this is when I get the small multiple. All right, this is my small multiple here. Now, this is the default layout. You have all the charts. First of all, when you're doing a small multiple, charts will become small. That's why it's called a small multiple, which means that there's limited space for all the labels and so on. So when you're doing this, when you're doing small multiples, make sure that the labels are, short and sweet and not too crowded, so that it's not too crowded inside here. So first of all, we'll put this into a proper unit. Let's just do millions or thousands. Let's do thousands. Sorry, we'll switch this to millions. Then we'll put the data units in the title. So instead of having this M everywhere for millions, we'll put it here. Well, we should go to thousands and without decimal places, maybe like this. I think this is more appropriate here. Now, okay, now that labels are cleaned up a little bit, next thing is, do you really need all the labels or not? So make sure you also tune the data label density. So for example, first, last, min, max is probably more than enough here. So I have all the most important labels, right? So it's a little bit better. Even, you know, even the labels here, first of all, do you want to display this, the growth here in absolute terms, or both in absolute and relative, or just relative? With a chart, just decide on one, maybe relative in my case here, and even I'll reduce the percentage decimals. Okay, so to make it clean. So all right, this is the standard thing. Now let's move to small multiples. First of all, there's a whole group of settings which control the layout of small multiples. First of all, we have a couple of layouts here. The default one is this smart rows, so which means that you always have one row of charts and next row of charts and so on. They are smart because, you know, the rows are bigger for bigger values and so on, what I was explaining before. Beside this, you do have the layout called the auto, so like the automatic one, which does, you know, which better handles scaling if you have big elements. Like in my case, this typical case, you see the difference? Smart rows. If I put this to Tableau, like a real case like this, you know, you would just see a few charts and everything else would be dwarfed, right? Now in this case, make sure you switch to auto here, automatic layout. So now this row was split, and this is now even better. Now bigger charts will become bigger, right? They will just use the usage of space is just better. All right. Then the sort, you have sort options. So by default, the Zebra BI visual will always sort descending, so you'll get the most important elements here and then the least important here at the end. Sometimes you know, you want to have ascending order, or sometimes you need the original order. I'll show you some examples, but in cases, I think, you know, sorting descending is like works best. Next thing, you have the grid, so you can turn on the grid, which will display the grid, especially in examples like this where you have the auto layout with split rows and so on. Maybe it's better to add the grid, just, you know, make it just leave it gray and so on. Don't use strong or dark colors for borders and grid lines and stuff. So in this case, just a small grid maybe makes things even more legible, right? So this is already kind of working. With the grid, you have some additional options here. So the color of the grid, the line style, you can have a dotted grid like this. Then you see, control the borders around the grid, so you can have just the inner part of the grid. You see just the inner grid here, which is kind of more minimalistic, I would say. And then it's the separate setting of the borders is the outside border. All right, so this is this is the automatic layout. Then we also have a layout which is still a little bit experimental, I would say. It's called the largest first, and it will in some cases, probably not really in this one, but in some cases it will return you know, better results. I think I'll find a few examples a little bit later, right? So yeah, this is the functionality. Now within the small multiples, you can click on the chart. So for example, now you see the big picture. What are the big units compared to small units and so on. Once you understand this, you can actually dive in and you can just click on a chart, click on, you know, the title, and you will get this chart you know, enlarged. So it's actually it's like a zoom in, so you can zoom into, you know, this business unit to understand, you know, what is going on within this business unit, right? But this is then the second action. You know, first you see what's important, and then, you know, if it's something what's going on here, skincare, you can just enlarge it to understand better and to see better you know, the details within a chart. So this is the basic functionality here. Then the next thing is you can make charts even bigger. So like this, you can resize the whole multiple. So not just the first row, because if the first row is getting bigger, then all the other rows, of course, must also get bigger in order for the scaling to still be pixel perfect, right? So you can use this just to resize it, either make it, you know, I just close it completely, which means that all the charts will be rendered here, or you know, make some of the charts bigger. But then, of course, the user will need to scroll. The end user will need to scroll. Actually, the end user can do all the options here as well. If you don't want the end user to have all this interactivity, so for example, now I can switch the charts, right? If you do not want the end user to have all this flexibility, just the viewers, right? Just go to interaction settings, and here you will have you know, the toggles, and you can say, all right, chart slider is not available for the end user, which means in the view mode, right? Now I'm in the edit mode within my Power BI desktop. I can do everything, but the end users, to control what the end users do, just toggle here. All right, these were the basic small multiples. Let me check if we have something else in store. So this would be, this would be a similar example, just monthly developments. If the developments are very low, so you can in this chart, in the waterfall chart, you can compare the absolute values, right? Actually, we can first do this, but then if you want to dive into, you know, understand the variances a little bit better, then you can actually break the axis here. But when you break the axis here, everywhere the axis is broken, but very important, the scaling between the variance is maintained. All right, so for example, if this is 338,000 or something, and this is 276, right? Then the size of the length of this arrow here is proportional to the length of this arrow. Okay, so even with the cut axis, you know, you can compare the rate of your variances, right? And you can control this. This is the axis break, so you can just simply click, you know, click to enable, disable it. When it's enabled, you can go here under settings. You have further settings for the axis break. How much, you know, is it broken, right? So it can go, you know, it can go higher to 90%, or 100% would mean that, you know, it's completely broken. Like 50% would show our relations here, and if you put it off, it's like this, right? All right, so you have control over this. Then the area charts. Let me show you a little. Let me show you a different example a little bit later with area charts. So you can do this with area charts and any other type of charts. The area charts area charts are here. So when you slide, first you get the waterfall charts, then you have the column charts, then you have the area charts. And now within those types of charts, you have additional layouts. So for example, for the area charts, you have the layout called the actual, which means that, for example, in my case, I have the actual compared to previous year. Okay, and now the actual layout means that, you know, the actual figures are rendered. If you put it to integrated variance, then the variance here in between is rendered as well. So, you know, there's more emphasis on the variances. So you have this toggle, it's still the area chart, but this time it's rendering variances instead of the actual the base figures, I would say, right? Which is similarly you can do it here. So this would be a small multiple of column charts, very simple, where you have the actual and then you have your previous year or your plan, for example, behind it, right? So again, you have this setting here. So this is because it's the actual layout. You can switch the layout to integrated variance also here, and you will get the chart which has the actual value, like the sales in baby care, and then you have the variance inside the chart. So understand month by month what's going on, right? I think this is already too many columns for a small multiple. In small multiples, I do prefer line charts and area charts because they are just cleaner. And if you have a lot of data categories in data visualization, then you need to reduce, you know, reduce the elements, and just lines are more minimal and just typically would work better if you have a lot of data elements here. But just to explain, you know, all the options here to return to this column chart here, you have the small multiples here. Then there's another version. Let's check this out. So for example, if you switch the column chart from the integrated variance chart to a combined, actually this is called the extended chart. So see, look, I'll do actual and absolute. And this time I will need to switch my small multiples to smart rows, because this functionality is only this chart is only available with smart rows. But it's very interesting because the let me go back to my layouts. So for example, see the difference here. I had integrated variance, which means baby care business unit. This variance here is integrated in the chart. What's the growth from the plan in December? It's in the same one. If you do it here, actual absolute, then you have your sales here like 383, and then this is the variance 801. And now you see this is a small multiple. This is getting really advanced because now I'm repeating charts across several business units, which is quite hard to do because everything needs to be scaled again. Of course, you see this is a lot of sales here, and you know this is just 200 and just 70 and going down. So not so important categories, almost nothing here in lighting, right? So you have this scaling of the actual charts, actual values, and then also the variances that are displayed here. So this will be one option. The other option would be to change this top part from the actual absolute value variance to relative variance, which means that now you have a chart here, and then you have the relative percentage here on at the top, right? Which can sometimes, in this case, it does not really work because there are such different, you know, such great differences in relative variances, but sometimes it can get useful. So again, just to wrap this part up, you can have small multiples of extended charts, so-called extended charts. All right, two more examples. This one, I find this one really interesting. So in my case now, I have the so-called KPI dimension. KPI dimension. Let me just explain how this works. So the KPI, I'll just throw it out, and I have like a KPI dimension. Let me put this. Let me design this as a slicer here. So you see, I have my revenue, which is my default. This is my revenue. I can switch to cost. These are now my costs and gross profit. You see, so I have this chart here is completely dynamic based on my KPI selection in my slicer here. All right. This is done with a DAX trick. So in our that was actually our previous webinar, how to do this. So I'll show you where all the webinar recordings are. But now I will use, instead of using this, because now I need to understand, all right, I need to switch. This is my revenue. What's going on? Okay, we have this type of growth and so on. And then, the user must switch here and then, remember this, go to gross profit, remember this. Oh, what was the revenue again? And then you go back and you go forth. And this is really easy now because I have one slicer with 3 values, but typically you would have, one slicer for KPIs, one slicer for products and business units and markets and everything, right? And it's impossible for people just to scroll and click through all the combinations just to find something interesting, right? So that's why I will delete this. And instead of using it as a slicer, I would just go to KPI and just click on it. And now it's gone to my group. Well, here, group placeholder, and I've got the small multiple. So now I just simply see all the charts. I see my revenue, I see my gross profit. Because it's scaled, I understand the relation of the growth of my gross profit to my revenue, which is really nice. And I also understand the growth of the cost. Oh, wow, you see this? This one already understands that I have growth here and it's green because this is revenue. But my costs are also growing from previous year, but they are red. Why are they red? I already did this when I was preparing this webinar. The trick here is that with Zebra BI, you can click on the title to zoom, but there's also the right click. So Zebra BI supports right click on several elements. This is one of those. So you see, this would be my normal one. And now I go right click and just select invert. And the meaning of this KPI of this particular chart is now inverted. So this is now how you can do nice presentations of multiple KPIs, even if they are not within a same measure. And this is what we call the KPI multiples. And now you can use this in a nice example like this one. So for example, this is my product revenue, service, total revenue, the cost, and so on. And here I see, so this will be like year over year, but here I also have some quarterly development. You can have monthly development. So you basically add a time dimension to understand the relations between all the elements. And this is now starting to make sense in Power BI because now you can because now the end user can simply can interact with the dashboard. They can select just product revenue and then enjoy the details in a large chart, or they will control click just selects multiple elements here. So now I have my product revenue compared to my service and other revenue. And I understand that service and other revenue is growing much faster than my product revenue here, and so on. So then you can add the total, the subtotal, which is the total revenue. So you see revenue, service revenue with the total. Then you can compare product revenue with product cost. Also nice one, right? And you see this one. This time, this one is green because the product, the costs are going down, which is good. Service and so on. So you get my point, right? Or you can select revenue and gross margin. Very nice, right? So understand this is growing for, let's be accurate, right? My revenue is growing for 29, and my gross margin for 23 in absolute terms, which is great, right? 18% on gross margin. That's nice business. Unfortunately, these are not our figures; they are Microsoft's from their official official income statement. And my income before taxes, net income, you see, it's really it gets quite powerful. All right, P&L multiples. Did I forget something? I think these are the most important features of those. Of course, again, you can do the charts instead of those waterfalls that I always try to use. You can have the area charts again. So this is my revenue compared to previous year's revenue, growing net income compared to previous year. I just add the previous year here. All right, all the charts so far were time charts. So the axis goes from left to right, and I have some sort of time series, monthly, quarterly, and so on. But you can actually create small multiples also with our visuals. So we have two visuals: power tables, power charts. So even with power charts, with power tables, this is the other visual, you can do the same. So now I have some sort of regions here. All right, so you have one chart here, and then you add the regions. I'm not so familiar. It's probably a customer that mentioned. All right, yeah. You just add a group, and in certain layouts here, you will see that you will get basically a small multiple, right? We do call those matrix charts here, but it's the same principle, the small multiples, it's just repeating, and it's scaled, so you can do it in several ways. Okay, all right. This is my presentation. Let me check on your questions. While I'm doing this, I'll just show you. I'll just disclose something. I think we have time. Just 1 second. What's coming up for those of you who are using Zebra BI? This is a small multiple with combo charts, combination charts, which is coming out in version 3.2. This is a spoiler. This is not out, but it will be next week. So on top of normal charts, you will be able to combine not just not just like actual versus budget, and you have it like this. You can actually add completely separate KPIs directly to our visuals. So for example, if you put like gross margin on top of your sales, you see the gross margins will be rendered as a separate series in charts, and the small multiples are working already with this and the tooltips and everything. So yeah, more about this next week. Now let's go back to your questions. There are two. How to decide which y-axis to scale on slide 9. Slide 9 was this one. So I don't understand actually. There are two y-axis. There are not two y-axis here. Maybe you thought something else. Well, in terms of axis, anyway, the axis is it's like this. So there's always the same axis. If you use, so in all the versions so far, there's actually everything is scaled. So even if there are more chart series, like in this case you have two lines, or you can have 3 lines, you can add like the forecast as well, and so on. It can get quite complex, but it's always scaled. So even if the secondary is technically used here, it's everything is scaled. So it looks like it's rendered on the same axis, and it's always the same maximum everywhere. So that's the requirement of the scaling. Now in this version that is coming up, 3.1, we'll add this exception, because you'll be able to build combo charts, combination charts. So if I add another measure here on the values, so you see now I have 2 values, and the second value measure in the value field will get rendered in the secondary axis. So you see this is 99%. 99%. So this is now the secondary y-axis. But now in small multiples, the secondary axis is scaled, so it is 24% gross margin here and 80% here, this one will be higher, right? So percent is scaled to percent, and the absolute variance is absolute values are scaled to absolute values. To hope this answers your question about the axis. Do the values have to be columns or they can be measures? The values can be measures, and of course they can be measures. So this is a measure. Typically all the values are measures. If you mean columns, if by columns you mean the implicit measures, so columns from your model without you defining a measure, then of course this also works. It's just like normally in Power BI. I do actually recommend to build measures for everything. Even if you have columns, build a measure, it's better. Then, oh yeah, Smita, you don't have a few options. If you don't have some of the options, if you're a subscriber and you don't have some of the options that I have shown right now, this means that you have an older version. So let me, where's my internet here? So now we are with the resources. If you haven't tried our visuals, please go to navigate to zebrabi.com. Our visuals are not on the store, are not on the App Store. These are the links here. This is a collection of the links. So the ZebraBI visuals, they are not on the app stores. You download the free trial here, zebrabi.com/pbi. And then we have also the PBIX examples and the webinar series, the recordings from previous webinars and so on. Everything is on our website. So if you navigate to zebrabi.com, first of all, we have two products, Excel and Power BI. This time I'm talking about Power BI. So go under products and select Power BI, or just scroll down and you'll see visuals for Power BI. And here, just type your email and you will get a 30-day free trial. For those of you who are subscribers, and if you did not see some of the features, just log into your member account. You or one of your colleagues must have a member account with ZebraBI, so you log into your member portal. And here you have all the versions, right? The latest version is 3.1.5 for Power Charts and 3.316 for Power Tables. You just download the visuals. Also, make sure you check the company style, the style editor, where you can set your own colors. If you're a subscriber, you have this style editor here. Choose your colors, save changes, and then when you will download, exactly those colors will already be rendered as default in all your reports, right? Okay, so just make sure you update your version, download, and then just import the downloaded visuals once again into your report, and it will be updated. All right, let's do a couple of more questions, 2-3 more questions. Can I show how the other works? Oh yeah, thank you for the question. That's actually very important. This others here, this is actually one of the most interesting features. Thank you for this question. So the others, my dimension here has a lot of elements. I said I think it's 2,000. That's why under small multiples you have more options here. So this one is important. It's called the top N, and by default it's off. If I switch this to off, now this one will render a lot of charts, you see. So this is now a lot of charts. That's actually 2,000 charts. If you believe me or not, these are 2,000 charts, all scaled within one visual, right? ZebraBI can rent due to heavy optimization that we've done internally, but it does not make any sense. If you have very large dimensions, then just go here under small. So this is under small multiples. Go here, open the top N and just, say top N items. And now here you control number of items. So for example, you just want to focus on a few ones like that. Now you have, a normal number of charts, but everything else is calculated. It's sum up in the others. So if you see this picture, this is your total, sales or our total web traffic, everything else is within these others. And if you just need to reveal it a little bit more, just simply increase the number of items. So while I'm doing this, Zebra BI is recalculating everything, all the categories, automatic categories, redrawing and so on. So this is the others here. Great. Thanks, Tanner. Thanks for all the thumbs up. Is there the possibility to make totals over all the multiples? Oh, that's a very interesting question. I'm afraid the answer is actually no. If you mean the total across all the charts, then I think the answer is no. You do have, for example, if you have like monthly chart here, and then you need a grand total. You do have a grand total here for the charts, but this is, I think, different from what you are asking. So if you enable the grand total, then every has a grand total here. So this is your quarterly sales, and this is the total result for baby care for the whole year. So, quarterly totals. So these are the totals, and now the totals are repeated across all the charts, right? Everything that you do here, there are other features as well, but but there is no option like to add a total across everything. So for example, if you needed the total of everything, you would just add one chart, because adding a total would be, I think, quite maybe challenging. So what I would do here is I would just copy and paste, and now I would just throw out the business units and just have this total here, and just put the total as a separate chart. Now this is this simple case where you have just one total. The other thing would be total by row or total by column, which is probably more challenging. Yeah, something like that, right? Just put it as a separate chart and then have the details here. All right. Can you drill down on the dimension in small multiple table? You can drill down into, so a couple of options here with the drill down. The drill down is possible on the category. All right, so the drill down is always on the category. So for example, if you have quarters here and I put monthly values below this, it looks like nothing has happened, right? But I actually have month below the quarters, and now you get the standard drill down buttons here, right? So you can drill, go to the next level in the hierarchy, and you'll get the monthly charts. And then, the user will do this, right? And you can go back, or you can expand all down one level, and now you have the quarters and the month. You see, and it's rendered quite nicely here in our case in Zebra BI. But this is only possible in the category, not in the group, right? You cannot drill down on the group somehow. So for example, if you need the details of baby care or something, I would probably do something here in the tooltip. Just do something in the tooltip, report page tooltip, for example, to get more information the next level. All right, guys, we need to wrap it up. Thank you very much. This, I guess, if you have any additional questions, please come back to us. Just ask me. These are the resources. It's all on our website. follow us. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. This is the easiest way how to get me. Like, just add me on LinkedIn and just send me a message. Lots of YouTube videos, LinkedIn page. So we are mostly active on LinkedIn and Twitter, just to get notifications. We've covered the questions. This is my email. Just feel free to write to me, and see you in our next webinar. Bye.